And welcome back to my podcast. My name is Pat Veracity, and the podcast is called Living Out Loud. It's called Living Out Loud because I'm from Laos. So, somebody, everybody, and welcome. So, this podcast is going to be about small business, real estate investing, and all things that are going to provide you guys hopefully some help and journey as I kind of have my guests and we talk about our journey. So, today I have a very special guest. It's actually from Laos, like me. So, Quito, take it away.
All right, Sabaidi.
Alrighty.
So, thank you for having me on the on your show, Pat. I feel honored, and like you, being from Laos, we kind of have similar stories. So, when my family came over in 1981, unlike most families where they end up in like California or Minnesota or somewhere in the East Coast, right?
Yes.
Or Texas. I mean, I ended up in Billings, Montana, out of all places.
Is, are you the only like Lao family there? Because I mean, Montana, that's was very small. That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes, it is. You're right. I mean, the Laotian community in Billings is pretty much my family. My mom, my dad, my older brother, my sister,
Wow.
my younger sister, my younger brother, and I have one other sister in Seattle area.
Okay.
But
So
yeah,
you guys were the village because normally when we immigrate we group together, right? We stay together. So
right.
your family was the village.
That's right. We were the village. If people wanted to go to to like to like an Asian town, they just
Yeah.
pass our house and that's it.
Yeah. Wow. So how was your experience there? How was it?
Growing up was interesting because, when you're in an environment, sometimes you don't realize it until you move out. So, growing up, I mean, things seem fine. But then when after high school, I went away to college in Arizona and got my degree in electrical engineering. And I remember after my first semester, I, went back home to visit my parents, and I'm standing at, the Albertsons there, and I'm looking around. This is crazy. Like for the first time, like it really dawned on me. It's like, man, you're like the only Asian in this whole entire store, which was weird because like I said, when you don't realize it just growing up. I didn't really feel a lot of any like racism or anything like that.
Okay.
Um, people treating me nice, but it's just as you know, there's a lack of diversity. I mean, it's
Yes.
better now, but still, I mean, it's not like where you're from or
Yes.
or
You know,
California.
it's funny that you say that, but I just want to add that when there is when you are the minority and in a predominantly dominated like let's say other race or other population, there is actually less racism, right? So I'm obviously you guys know guys, I'm in Atlanta. So in Atlanta, it's a very black and white. And when there is more, and in the same way it's like out on the West Coast with like let's say Seattle, right? Like with whites and Asian, like it's amazing because when there's more equal or more race, that's when you see more racism. I just want to bring that out, just for America, just so people can kind of understand,
Right.
different angles of things. But it is amazing that I have experienced that when I go to a place where there's not a lot of diversity, there's actually less racism. So I don't know, just
Mhm.
kind of interesting, just kind of
Yeah, it
my
is.
experience.
It is. Yeah.
You know,
So yeah, so just growing up there, and it's like, wow, this is different. And I've always wanted to create my own path. And I got my degree. I thought, man, this is it. This is what I'm going to be doing, right? And then I ended up moving to California. I was there for about a year, and then went up to Seattle, which I was been in Seattle for about 20 years, where I met my wife.
wow.
But I read
Can I ask you something just with that? We're in because in the East Coast for us here in Atlanta, our dream was, like most young people, like, oh, they always dream of going out west to California, right? For you
Mhm.
guys that are in the middle, of America, do you guys have that same thing, like small town? Oh, we're gonna move to California. Is that a thing out
But
there?
for me, I wanted to just move to a bigger city, right?
Okay, okay,
Like whether that's California or whether that's the Seattle area. I knew that I wanted to just as a kid, when you get old, it's like, man, I want to get out of this town, right?
okay.
But what's ironic is like I'm back in Billings because, and we'll get to that story. But it is ironic that now that I'm older, I'm thinking, man, you know what? Billings is not such a bad place to raise a family, right? So yeah. So I was saying I was, ended up moving into Seattle, got a job with Hewlett Packard, and I read this book, right? As most, I think most entrepreneurs, this seems to be like the go-to book that kind of ignites it for a lot of majority of entrepreneurs. You know,
Let me guess. Is it Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Absolutely, you guessed it right because it's like you talk to any entrepreneur, that's like it's like the Bible, right? It's like,
I was hoping I was gonna be wrong. I was like, you're gonna come up with a better book, but I just taking a guess. That was my
yeah,
book too, but that's my book. Continue. Sorry.
yeah. So I read the book and it just kind of like, it's kind of interesting. And at that time, I you know I actually bought a house and I was a single guy and I rented out my rooms, right? It was a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, like it's just me. So I rented out 2 rooms. And this is obviously before house hacking was like, it became popular, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, and 2/3 of my mortgage was being paid for. It's like, but that book kind of got me thinking, it's like, okay, real estate, passive income. So what I ended up doing was I took out an equity on my first home,
Okay.
used it to buy my second, third, and I just kind of kept rolling it over. And and I
How
was
old were you at this time?
23 when I bought my first property.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
I was 23 years old, and then just kind of kept stacking. So when I met my wife at the time, my girlfriend, I had about 5 rental properties, and I was still an engineer.
Okay.
And that's one thing I wanted to bring the fact about just having just the right partner,
Yeah.
right? At the time, I didn't realize it, but she was like, okay, well, you know what? My friends want to know what you were doing. So, so I would meet with their friends, show them about, how to calculate cash flow, investing properties. And at the time, I also got my license in the beginning was for my own purposes, not to actually get into real estate sales,
Yes.
right? So I just kind of fell into it because my wife's like, well, girlfriend at the time, like, well, my friends had some questions. Could you help them out? So I would show them. I would then use my license to help them buy rental properties, right?
Yes. Wow.
So
Wow.
she kept booking appointments for me. So after I get done with work, she kept booking appointments. And I think it was about a year later, I was looking like my part-time real estate income exceeded my full-time engineering income.
Wow.
Like,
And that's part-time being an agent.
yeah, part-time being an agent.
Yes. Yes.
And this was back in 2003, guys. So imagine. So 2003, things were going great. And then I ended up quitting my engineering job because I was thinking, man, I really enjoy this, and more so than the engineering work, right? And believe me, it was good work. I mean, they gave me a brand new car every year, paid for every ounce of gas, insurance. I mean, it was a nice. I call it the golden handcuffs, right?
Yes.
It was
A
nice. It
safety. It was a good safety net.
was with good safety net, and I've
Yes.
never like really been out on my own, so I still was kind of nervous, but but my wife said, you could do this if you did this part time any more than your engineering income. Imagine what you could do full time. It's like, okay, Mason. So I just totally jumped, right? Jumped, and I burned my ship, right?
Yes. Oh, you
And
burned it.
I burned my ship. And and then we were doing good. I mean, as a real estate agent, I was in the top 10% in the nation with the
Wow.
company that I was with at the time.
Yes. Wow.
And it was a great company, a lot of sales training, and I mean, and I didn't realize how much I enjoy sales.
Yes.
We're gonna fast forward because things were doing good. We ended up getting married, and so this was fast forward to 2008. Okay, as you know, when you look at the history, 2008, the real estate market took a dive. And
Yes.
at that time, I didn't understand about market cycles. I didn't have the kind of information that we do have now, right? Being involved in different communities, being connected. I mean, the internet was just still was still kind of new at that time, right? YouTube was there, but it wasn't as, it was just starting to gain momentum. So we didn't
Yeah,
have access to information.
that's correct. Yeah, access, that's important.
Yeah, access. So here I am. I thought life was good. The market took a dive, and literally we went from making like really good money at that time, probably like 40 to $60,000 a month, right? And that,
Yes.
man, life is
Wow.
good. I've never made that kind of money before. And I
Yes.
mean, little guy from Billings, Montana, right? Making this kind of money, but I've invested all back in real estate. I mean, I didn't go out and buy a mansion or fancy cars, like thinking, you know what, I'm just gonna live modestly and just put money back into real estate.
And what gave you that mindset? Because not everybody thinks that way, but what was your thought process in terms of I'm going to just reinvest it?
I think for me, I was kind of thinking long term,
Okay.
right? This is going to be something, for the long term. And at that time, we have like three little ones now,
Yeah.
right? So, and that okay, um, you know, thinking long term, just kind of build it. And then when the market took, we went from literally making a lot of money to really just nothing, and we're
Mhm.
living off of our savings. And
Wow.
it kept going. So, I mean, I'd see my savings going down, down, down. So, like almost a year later, right? We're like, I mean, nothing was working. I was trying to make
Wow.
sales, things were just really at a standstill when it
And
comes to
this
real
was
estate.
at oh 08, right? This is at
This
08.
is in
At
oh
08.
08.
Oh 08.
Oh
How
08.
many years from the time you left your corporate job, your W-2, and the difference?
So 5 years. So I
5 years.
left, I left in 2003,
Okay.
now 2008.
Yes.
We had at that time, about 10 rental properties.
Okay.
Okay. And here's the thing about these rentals. At the time, I was banking on appreciation, right? Because things were kept going up and up and up. Like I'm thinking, okay, good. And I wasn't, in hindsight, I wasn't looking at cash flow.
Yes.
So, and I was negative on several of my properties, thinking, oh, no problem. It's for savings. I'm making all this money. I'll
Yes.
just pump it back in, right? So here I am. I'm really like down to like I'm just scraping by. And I remember it was things started getting so tough for me, Pat. It was my daughter's birthday.
Yes.
And I remember sneaking into her room, going to her piggy bank so I can grab some money and get her own birthday present at the
Mhm.
dollar store. And I mean, up to this point, I've always experienced success. Things kept going up from I haven't
Yes.
experienced any kind of hardship. And as a father, as a husband, as a man, we want to provide for our family.
Yes.
And
Wow.
at that time, I felt like, Pat, I felt like I couldn't provide, right?
Yes.
And I'm a believer, and I remember, just driving to the dollar store, I was just like praying, like Lord, help me be the man you created me to be. Help me,
Yes.
be this person you want me to be. Like, I know that our creator does not want us to live a life of mediocrity, right? Our creator
Yes.
wants to live a life of abundance and
That's
prosperity.
great.
And here I am, having to go to my daughter's piggy bank so I can get her a birthday present.
Wow.
But but I knew for things to change, I had to change, right? For
Exactly.
things
Yes.
to get
Yes.
better, I had to get better.
Yes.
And what was interesting was, I was, during this whole time, I was into personal development, right? So just feeding my mind. I mean, up to that point, I really had if it wasn't for just shifting my mindset and having those, positive um, information in my head, I think I would have been really worse off than I was. Even though it was bad, I
Yes.
think it would have been worse off than what I thought was even bad, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yes, yes. I mean, for you, I
So
know it was probably a very hard moment for you. Like you said, you had to sneak into your daughter's room and get her own money for piggy bank to pay for it. So yeah, I can only imagine that. And then as you were going through that, like when you talk about personal development and change, I know personally for myself too, is that the fact that when you don't experience loss, right? Just any kind of loss, right? Like it's like you can be playing sports and you're losing or just something like that. You really don't know until you experience it. Then that's when like the universe shift and say, okay, you have to change. And so like you said, some people don't ever change. Some people just, they stay down. Or they don't know how to pivot or relearn. Like what was like you said, you were into personal development, which is I would say I'm learning that even now, right? Learning how to learn to do my own personal development. But how did you get to that level and what made you kind of change? Was it because of hardship or was it because your faith? What was your process there?
Yeah, there definitely was a combination.
Okay.
Obviously, I think when you experience a hardship, it's actually what creates and builds you to who you are today. At the time, you may not realize it. I tell you what, I was like, oh man, this just sucks. This is bad, right?
Yes.
And then obviously, relying on my faith to know that there'll be better days,
Yes.
right? There's this mantra that I had in my head. Um, it's just like this too shall pass, right?
Yes.
Like
That's good.
whatever situation, hardship you're in, like this too shall pass,
Yes.
And it's also too on the flip side too, when things are going good, that too shall pass, right?
Yes.
So it's always gonna keep balance because sometimes when things are going really well, we get really cocky and we don't,
Yes.
we're not looking at our numbers, we're not doing our KPIs, we're not growing because we think life is good,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But so with my mantra, like this too shall pass. Even now, like the situation I'm in, I was in the back of my mind, this shall pass. So I just gotta be prepared, right?
I like the fact that you said that even in good times that's a pass too. So you have to always be prepared. So
Mhm.
I actually I'm gonna use that because
Yeah, and what's interesting is see, it's during the good times that you're weak, right?
yes.
So, but what's
Mm,
ironic is the hard times. That's when you dig
yes.
in, right?
Yeah, I didn't think about that. During the good times when you're weak. Wow. I like it.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's deep.
So here I am, like I got to make a change. I had a pivot.
Yes.
So I mean, my pivot was going, into the food business,
Yes.
right? Like growing up in Montana, my
So
parents did the farmers market.
so at this point, are you in Seattle, right?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm in Seattle at this
Okay.
point.
This is not in Billings, Montana. This is Seattle.
Yep, this is
Got
in
it. Got
in
it. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Seattle. Um, so here I am, I'm thinking to myself, we need to do food
Yes.
because, I grew up in the food industry. My parents did food. I helped them at the farmers market, the festivals and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, let's do that because I tried getting back into engineering. I mean, literally, I tried getting a job as a stock boy at Winco. Okay, they didn't even hire me. I mean, that's
Oh no.
it's just crazy. I was like, wow. I mean, I was just like, I would humble myself, like,
Yes.
like, I have a degree in engineering. I'll take whatever I
Yes.
could, like I'll work the night shift.
So at this point, you lost everything. I just want to just clarify to the audience. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
lost
This
everything at this
point, I,
point.
I pretty much, lost my rentals, whether through foreclosures or
Yes.
whether through short sales or whatever. It was
Yes.
all like gone. The only thing I had was my house,
Yes.
right? And still, I was just barely hanging on. I mean, I was,
Wow.
doing loan modifications after loan
Yes.
modifications, right?
Wow.
Just kind of kick the ball
Yes.
at that time, that programs and stuff to try to keep you in the house. And that's what I
Yes.
was doing.
Wow.
And so at that point, so like, okay, so we started getting into we made a pivot, right? Getting into the food business. Oh, and another thing too, as I was pivoting, another challenging time for me was actually getting on public assistance,
Okay.
right? Because I've never even growing up, my parents didn't get on public assistance,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Interesting.
they just
Wow.
kind of did what they can to put food on the table, and that
Yes.
was it. But I was like, man, I really had to humble myself,
Yes.
right? And I would be so embarrassed, like I would drive to the grocery store late at night just so in hopes that I don't run into anybody that I know.
Yes. Yes.
Like here I am, this real estate, agent, and and I'm, paying stuff with food stamps. That was that was tough for Ray. But
Wow.
I knew at that time that I wasn't going to stay there. This is like only temporary,
Okay.
right? Because it's so easy to get caught up because the less you make, the more they give you.
Yes.
So the more you make, the less they give you, right? So
Yes.
you're thinking,
Yes.
okay, well, so and I didn't want to get stuck in that cycle. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna be humble. I need it for right now,
Yes.
but that's just it.
Yes.
So we were there. We were probably on it for about maybe 4 months,
Okay.
max 4 months, and got our stuff out of there. But we started doing the food business, selling at the farmers market. I mean, I would be happy just to make, if I could to make $300 a day would be like,
Yes.
oh, that would be great,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So we were just barely making enough money just to kind of get afloat. I mean, we still had some bills that were unpaid and stuff like that,
Yes.
but at least we could, start buying groceries and stuff like that. I mean, there was times, Pat, where I was so broke. I mean, I had to go to the uh, the back of my shed so I can get gas from there, put gas in our minivan so I can drive the
Yes.
kids to the park because we couldn't afford to do anything else.
Yes. Yes.
And the interesting thing was like during that time, like our kids, they obviously they were young, so they didn't know what was going on.
Yes.
Them things were, long as they had the lights on, the food on the table, they were fine,
Yes.
right? They didn't know. Now they know because obviously they're older.
Yes.
My oldest, I have three kids. My oldest 19. I have a 17-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter. So I mean,
Wow.
we share that story from them so they understand like
Yes.
where we came from, right? Like it wasn't always easy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so like making that pivot into the food business kind of got us back on our feet.
Okay.
Got us
Okay.
back on our feet. Then we started from there building a food truck, right? And I remember get this, Pat, like in order to finish the food truck, we needed needed like extra $10,000, right?
Yes.
And I we had to sell my wife's diamond ring, right? God
Oh,
bless her soul. Um, and note before I get to that about some of the ring, I remember years ago before we got married, when life was good, my promise to her was because I knew that 50% of marriages end in divorce, about
yes.
70% of that because of finances, right? So I
Yes.
said, as we were before we got married, I said, let's not let money be what separates us. As long as I have my two hands, I will build her dreams. That was my promise to her,
Wow.
right? Little
Yes.
did I know, I was gonna have to eat my words.
You spoke it into existence.
Exactly. Look into existence. So,
Yes.
so I really built it. I mean, we built the food truck with my bare hands. Like, I mean,
Yes.
I learned how to cut and I had friends that helped me. But eventually I ended up hiring a professional to
Yes.
finish it up. That's why I need that extra 10 grand because I got to the point that I was thinking like, what the heck am I doing? Like, it's just taking me twice as long. And so, and I, kind of looked around and thought, you know what, let me find someone that can do this. They can get it done quicker
Yes.
and I could be off selling, right?
Yes.
So she sold the ring, and to this day, she still doesn't have the ring. And I told her, you could go buy a ring anytime you want. Like
Yes.
I told her I would double it, like whatever you want, like I will double. And her thing is saying, honey, as long as I have you, that's what's important.
Yes.
Um,
Wow.
and
Wow.
then of course then she thinks about the price of the diamond rings, like, that could be used as a down payment on a
Yes.
real estate.
Exactly, exactly. I heard once that the diamond ring industry, they came up with this idea of how important and of a representation that it is just to
Yeah.
sell, and we think about just life as a whole, right? Like just like everything, like what the markets and the big companies put out there in our minds, well, what's
Mhm.
important and what's not. Like you say, well, what is important? Important is the fact that you guys are together.
Yeah.
Does that really make a difference? I mean, I've heard so many stories. You say, most marriages end in divorce. I mean, I've heard people that have been together for 10 years. The moment they got married, they were divorced 3 months later or a month later.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
So sometimes I think we as humans, or I would say even Americans, that we put I think what do you call it? We put in our minds that some things are more important than others, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. Like what you just said. So no, that's a great point.
Yeah, it is. I tell you, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't, for my wife, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
think, in any marriage, in any marriage or any partnership, you've got to have somebody there.
yes,
That's your rock. That's there. I mean, there's times where, we'd be laying in bed and she'll look at me. It's like, are we going to be okay?
yes,
And I would say, yes, because because I had to, be that rock for her,
yes,
while she was being a rock for me and supporting on the things that I was doing,
yes,
right?
yes,
So where we kind of help balance each other out. And I mean, she's even to this day, I mean, there's some investment stuff that I run my investments through her. Like
yes,
to me, it makes sense number wise.
yes,
But women have this innate instinct, like if they don't have a feel for something,
yes,
and there's times that I've done it before, I kind of push it through,
yes,
and in the end it didn't work out,
yes,
and I say like, I told you so,
yes,
right?
yes,
So I always, run things through through my wife,
yes.
right? And
It's a second eye, right? It's a second eye. It's like, you're the let's just say, for example, COO and she's the CFO, right? Like you just kind of
right.
like, can you just double check this for me? Which
Yeah.
is which is great because I think that us as men and us as humans, we like when you're telling me your story about you building the food truck by yourself, like we even for me, like I'm at the fault for this where I think I can do everything by myself.
Hmm.
But I think as humans that we need to we are more of a community base or a village base, a society where to grow, like we need other people's help, and I think that sometimes, and I've said mostly for the men, that it's like we want to do everything ourselves. Like we don't want to ask for help. We get very stubborn and we think that we can do it, but it is so much more better when you have more support and more help, like for example,
Absolutely.
your partner, your wife, someone you can talk to and just kind of just even if you are doing it, it's just to have that support, to have that someone you can, discuss things with. Sometimes it's just feelings. Sometimes we get down on feelings, and I think it's very, very important that the mindset and the feelings are in a good place in order for us to grow, or if or we don't have that, we can kind of stumble in our own path. And even though sometimes it's not a matter of knowing, it's just a matter of having that more support and the understanding, like with you, what you were saying, like to keep going. I think keep going even when through bad times. It's gonna pass, but to have that support is 100 times better than to try to do it by yourself.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, even now, like, in what we do, I'm always, reaching out, getting other people to help out. Because, as a guy, instinctively we want to do things on our own. We think it's macho, right? Oh, I don't need any
exactly.
help. I can do it myself.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But like you said, it's having the help and support from other people that's going to help get you what you want sooner.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I want you before our time ends. I do want you to talk about now. You'd moved back to Montana. And you told me about your success from I'm going to call it zero to hero. Tell us a little bit about that, 'cause I think the audience needs to hear this.
So here we are. We're gonna fast forward, right? And doing food. I knew real estate was what I wanted to do, so
Yes.
I just had to put it on ice. And so back in so from 2008, almost a decade of not doing real estate, we got back on feet and got the okay from my wife that, okay, you can start doing real estate, just do it on the side. Okay, now we've learned our lesson. Looking back, like, okay, how can we grow from it? And that's the thing is when you go through a hardship, look back and learn like what did I learn from there? How can I improve?
Yes.
What did I didn't see? Just kind of analyze it instead of just going through hardships. Man, I'm glad I'm done with it. It's
Yes.
like we got to look back and say, how can we use that as a stepping stone to grow from that experience?
Correct. Yes. Yes. Did you
So
did you have that itch that you wanted to always get back? Because
I
your your
did.
your your story is semi-similar to mine. I know we talked about that, but it's like I've always had that itch. Like I got to get back to real estate. I got to get back to real
Yeah,
estate.
yeah,
Almost like
yes, absolutely. That itch was there. I was like, man, I need to. So when she gave me the okay, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
yes.
And so I set up my license. So I call on expired listing, right?
Were you
And
in Seattle at this time, or did you
this
move
time
back?
I was in Seattle. I called on
Yeah. Okay.
expired listing. And as I was driving there, I was looking in the neighborhood and it's like, man, home prices are like what she wants to sell it for is like half of what homes are selling for that are in good condition, right?
Yes.
They call that the ARV, the after repair value. So, and in the back of my mind, I heard this concept called wholesaling. I've only heard about it. So, and with my years in real estate, I understood enough about the concept, like, okay, I can see how this works, but I've never done it or haven't met anybody that's done it before, right? So, but I thought, you know what? Hmm, there's something there. So I called up the seller and said, you know what? I know you want to list it, but you know what? I'll buy it from you at the price you want to list it for,
Yes.
right? And I'll give you cash and I'll close in 90 days. So here's the thing. One, I don't have any money, not that kind of money. But two, I thought, 90 days would give me enough time to figure things out because
Okay. Okay.
I think as entrepreneurs, right, we will figure things out. Like give us a
Yes.
problem and we'll figure it out. So that
Yes.
was my thinking. Like, you know what? I'll figure out how to do this wholesaling stuff, right? So we got under contract for 100 and for 180,000.
Okay.
Put it on Craigslist for 230. Like, okay. And this is back when Craigslist was popular. So I was getting calls and was set up, meetings and stuff. And what's interesting was the seller didn't even ask for my credit, didn't
Yes.
even ask for proof of funds or anything. It's like, okay, that was it. And so long story short, I ended up selling the some probably 10 days later. My wife thought, oh man, does this work? Is this legal? I said, yeah. But what's interesting was when I got the contract, I called up my escrow lady and say, hey, I've got this property under contract and I'm gonna sell it to somebody else. What do I need to do? Because I don't actually own it. I just got this paper. She's, well, you're gonna need an assignment. Because I didn't know what an assignment was.
Yes.
So she told me what it was, and she sent me an example of what one looked like. So I just looked at that piece, like, okay, changed my information. That was it. That was me, right? And so I ended up selling it. So that first deal, and I was still kind of in disbelief after I found a buyer that's going
Yes.
to close in 10 days. Like, man, and they're going to pay real cash, like real
Yes.
money,
Wow.
right? Like,
Wow.
man, because in Seattle, there's a lot of investors. I mean, and this is before I've learned about, using hard money and stuff,
Yes.
private money and things like that. But so people were buying stuff left and right. So like, okay, this is great. So when it closed, I felt like I won the lottery, Pat. I went from just barely getting by to like suddenly $50,000 in my hands,
Wow.
right? That was just, that to me was just kind of life. That was the pivotal point, like, man, like this stuff works. And so I got hooked.
On one deal too, on one
In
deal.
one
That's
deal,
that's the
that
average America's salary, right? Like that's just the average
exactly,
life that most Americans live off of for a whole year.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So here I am just in one deal. It's like, man, this is great. This really got me out of, from just getting by to like, you know what? Now I can do some stuff here.
Yes.
Right. And then from there, and now I got proof of concept. Like now I know how this works.
Yes.
So, and I was good at finding deals, right? So I would find another deal, another deal. So in patent less than 6 months, right? We went from barely just getting by to making almost $250,000 in six
Wow.
month time frame. So that was like boom,
Yes.
right? Like, wow. And then, from there I started, getting to doing fix and flips, right? But what I've learned on my first fix and flip was I didn't want to do it by myself, right? Like get some help. So I partnered up with some that did over 150 of them. So my first three flips was just learning, the process, what he was thinking, how he was looking at things. Now I can look at things and know which wall to move, how to, change
Yes.
things up. But before I was clueless.
Yes.
But so, it's always important to like learn to earn, right? Because some people want to make a lot of money on the first deal, but just learn the process, learn it, even if you made nothing, it's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
But just go and get that education because that is so valuable.
Learn to earn. I love it. Love it. Learn to earn.
Learn to
Yes.
earn,
Yes.
learn to earn. So from there, of course, this is now we'll fast forward to the pandemic, right? When the pandemic hit, I just did my last flip in Seattle. and I've always wanted to move back to Billings. Okay,
Okay.
every year we would visit my parents, and my wife could only handle like 4 days, and then she wants back in Seattle. And she used to the big city life. And when you're from the big city and you go to like a smaller town, you
Farm
know,
country.
it's yeah, life kind of
Countryside.
slows down because Billings, even though it's the biggest city in Montana, we only have 130,000 population.
Okay.
Okay, the whole state of Montana is about a million, a little over a
Yes.
million.
Yes.
Okay, so as you can imagine, like you go from Seattle, we have like a couple million to 130,000,
Yes.
right? And so, but the pandemic was kind of pivotal because it kind of helped her change her mind. Like, you know what? Maybe we should go because with all the different regulations and rules and different states, Montana just more lax about
Yes.
the regulations and things like that. So we moved, and we didn't even tell my parents we were moving, right? So we ended up buying our house sight unseen. Just we saw it online, right? And we thought we'll do food on this side because we didn't know how real estate was going to be doing, right?
Yes.
But we know we could do well in food. So
Yes.
we had a food truck, we had a food trailer built, we got it shipped it to Billings. And so when we got there, real estate just started to take off for us.
Yes. You didn't
Right.
tell me that story that you
Oh,
had a backup with the food truck already
yeah,
set.
I did. I did. We had a food truck built and we had it shipped. It was a food trailer.
Yes.
It was just sitting there in our driveway, not being
Wow.
used.
You were ready. You were
Yeah,
ready.
I was ready to do the food because I know my family does food and they do well there. It's like, you know
Yes.
what? We'll
Yes.
do food too because we're and my wife's never moved out of state at all. I mean,
Okay.
since she's been in the US, she's been in Seattle, right? So this is like, but we know the food would do well. So we're just like,
Yes.
okay, now do real estate on the side.
Okay.
And so from there, when real estate started taking off, we thought, wholesaling is good because you get an infusion cash. But the thing is, you have to keep doing it. You have to keep hunting, right?
Yes. That's
And then
correct.
my mentor at the time saying, you're good at finding deals. Why don't you find a way to keep it and create cash flow, right? And and he goes, why don't you figure out what that number is for you, right? And we'll build a plan to achieve it. Like, okay, so my wife and I sat down, we came up with a number that would pay our bills, car payment, mortgage, insurance, whatever. And so we went from there. It's like, okay, and we gave ourselves a 3-year plan. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this in 3 years. And so here I am. So now we're in Billings, we're working away, right? We're working away. We're buying, and what I wanted to share with you was, see, certain strategies, right, could be a good accelerant because for a while I kept using traditional financing where you go, you get a loan, you buy a house, right?
That's
But when
how we're taught, right?
I was
That's what the society and that's what we're taught. Yes.
Yeah, but when I've learned about creative financing, like, oh, you can get creative and get the seller to be your bank. That was a game changer for me, right? It's known as like seller financing or
Yes.
doing stuff if there's a loan, we could do like subject to. So I started, buying several properties literally a month because now I don't have the restriction of getting qualified from a lender. As long as the seller said, yes, I'll do it, I'll buy it. That was my thing. So we were buying properties left and right. So fast forward like 6 months later, I'm laying in bed, talking to my wife, like, hey, honey, our good 3-year plan. She goes, yeah. Well, it doesn't look like we're gonna hit it. Goes, what do you mean? Well, based on this, is we've already hit our goal in 6 months. We went from like zero properties, zero rentals, to over 60 units in 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow.
we're like just now we're like literally cash flowing. And because
Yes.
I was saying, honey, remember I haven't been asking you for money to pay our bills, right? Because now we got our rentals that are paying our bills, that's paying our mortgage, that's paying this, that's paying that. And it was exciting because it was like for the first time in my life, like, wow, like I mean, I was excited, like, wow, this is, and then at the same time, it's like, what do I do next, right? Because now that I got the income coming in, that takes care of our basic needs. Everything else is just bonus on top of that,
Yes.
right? And so we've obviously we're still learning, we're growing because now, I'm managing a whole portfolio. We've got
Yes.
a property manager, maintenance personnel, and a full-time person that does our rehabs and stuff like that. So, and I'm still navigating, dealing with tenant issues. I mean, there's things that come along with it, even though we hit our goal, like great.
Yes.
Like now, how do we get better?
Now
How
you
do
got to
we
run and manage the business.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
it's business like you. Yes.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So
Amazing
yeah,
story.
that's
Yeah.
kind of where we are. And I think what really worked was obviously the pandemic, where a lot of people were scared.
Yes.
For us, we pushed forward
That's correct.
because I remember telling my wife, like during that, back in '08 when things were tough, I said, hey, next time there's an event, right? Let's take the opportunity and be the one on the other end where we can take advantage of it versus
Yes.
being the one that is suffering. Let's be the one that prosper from this
Yes.
opportunity, right?
Yes. Yes.
And obviously, when the government was giving away money left and right, well, we didn't spend our money on other things, right? We used that money, we packed it together, and we were like buying real estate with that money.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
While
Yes.
people were buying fancy cars or whatever, fancy clothes, we're like, you know what? Let's
Proper
use
spree.
yeah, let's use this money because we even got like the business loan,
Yes.
right? I mean, so whatever I think government program that we qualify for, we're like,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
you're giving away money. If we qualify, we'll take it, right?
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
What a great
So
story. No, I think it's amazing. It's just, it's just, it shows you the willpower and kind of, going through hard times and that, like you say, what my takeaway from it is that this, everything's gonna pass, the good times and the bad times. So, and
mhm.
I love the fact that you say that, the good times is when we're the most weakest. I never thought about that. That's amazing. Amazing. So if you could tell your younger self, right? If you could tell your younger self, what would be your number one advice that you would tell your younger self?
My younger self, I think on the investing side would be like buy for cash flow,
Yes.
right? Buy for cash flow and hold on, because looking back, when if I was able to cash flow, even though if the market took a dip, it wouldn't have mattered because
Yes.
then I wouldn't need to sell it.
Makes
Right?
sense. Makes sense.
So just buy for cash flow. Another thing too is like start on your personal development journey early, right? Wherever you're at, like if you can change your mindset, because that's the most important asset is what's between your ears.
I love it. Yes. Yes.
People think it's the physical stuff, right? But no, that's your most valuable real estate is between your ears. And people don't treat it like that. They feed their
I
mind
love
with
it.
junk and negativity, right? But
Yes.
you got a really valuable asset, nourish it, take good
Yes.
care of it. And,
I tell my 9-year-old he plays soccer, and I said, the most important game that you play is between your ears.
absolutely,
And I told him because he's a very talented player, but he gets very timid, right? And I know he has talent, but when he gets into the game, he gets a little bit, he doesn't play like he does in the backyard. And that's what I always remind him. I always tell him, I say, Raphael, the most important, game you play is between your ears, is in your head. Play that game first.
absolutely, absolutely. And then the third thing too is surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do,
Mm,
right? Because they're
great.
gonna be the ones that's gonna help accelerate, give you a shortcut.
Yes.
And the kind of things we alluded before was about, not doing things by yourself, right? That's why it's so important to surround yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they can help you. So that's what I would tell my younger self, those three things, right?
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. We talk about the community, and I grew up in a church. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church. I haven't gone to church in my adult life, but as a kid, I grew up in church. And what I see in the church is that a lot of people would go to church for the community and it's usually it's a cycle. It's usually people going through hard times, and they need to kind of change their mind, right? And they go into religion and religion helps them from a mindset standpoint. And I, and that's just the, if you think about it, that people need that community, right? They need it. And also as I'm getting older now, and I also realize that from the community standpoint, it's so much support. It's just so much support, but it's not always too when we need it, but it's also helps us when we grow. It helps in so many factors, and that's the reason why the church community is so huge and so big. But that's also the same in the business community. That's also the same in different communities. So I love that, that analogy in that, in terms of being around people that you see successful, or just like you and I, like we met, we talked, and now we're good friends. And it's just one of those things
Right.
where I want to be where you are, in a few years, and hopefully that relationship's going to help me. And it may not help me at the moment, but maybe in the future, because what you did and what you taught me, just kind of in this conversation, is going to go a long way. And if I ever need help, I say, Quito, help me. I have this. How do I fix this? And then, but that's just kind of the community aspect of it, and putting, you know, you put yourself out there, and I'm putting myself out there, and say, hey, can we talk? Can we get together? And
Mhm.
now you're here on my podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to, to meet you, and I'm glad we've connected, and also too. I mean, like I've mentioned before, I don't see a lot of Laotian people, like
Yes.
business people like ourselves that are Laotian, that connect with each other, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
kind of nice to have that brotherhood. So
Oh, thank you.
I
And I love it. I'm so excited because it's just one of those things where there's not a lot of us, right? We're already a small population in terms of like when people and I'll make a little story for the audience, right? Like people see us are like, oh, are you Vietnamese, or are you Chinese, or are you something? We're like, no, I'm from Laos. Where's that at? And then I always tell people, oh, it's right. I was born in Thailand. Oh, okay. Sometimes
right,
I get
yeah,
tired and I go out there, and especially if it's people that I don't really know, just I come out on the street and I tell people, oh, I'm from Laos. I'm like, what? And then my second answer is, oh, I'm Thai. They say yes. And my son asked me, he said, no, you're not. You're from Laos. And I'm like, because my mom used to say that, and I used to get so tired of her saying, like, why does she keep saying Thai? No, we're from Laos. I used to be so proud of that. And
mhm,
now in my older age, I'm finding myself tell people Thai because I'm so tired of trying to explain to people.
mhm, right,
Yeah, just a
yeah.
little quick story there. Yeah. So, well, great. Well, no, thank you so much. And I got one more last question. So, and where do you go from here? What are your
You
goals?
know, from here, it's just like I'm still building my business. I'm looking at other projects. Um, I'd like to get into, you know, buying an RV park,
Yeah.
or a mobile home park. So I mean, obviously, investing is always going to be, um, like I'm always going to keep growing, right? New opportunities come my way. When you get to the point where I don't want to be stagnant, right? Like if I don't have to buy any property right now, I'll be okay. But
Yes.
that's not where I want to be. I want to continue to grow, and I also want to continue to provide value for other people, right? And like I say, create other communities and whatnot. So I'm always looking to grow. I'm still young. I mean, I'm 50, so I still got more
Yes.
time on this earth, and just wanna just to do what I can just to push myself to grow. And so
Wow. I love it. Thank you so much, Keto. Thank you, man. Thanks for coming. Pop Jai,
all right,
for
thank
coming
you.
into the podcast, and I'm going to have you back.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody. Till next time.